the weather forecast with C3 Production.
Good evening, good people, and glad to have your company once again on the weather forecast. I hope you had an interesting day. Light to moderate showers are expected to persist over some parts of the far north, east, and the Adamawa regions tonight, while the rest of the nation remains calm. Temperatures may get as low as 15 to 16 degrees in the west and northwest regions, the center and east getting a minimum of 19 to 20 degrees, and we may have in the north and far north regions as low as 21 to 22 degrees. Detailing the Adamawa region tonight, we may have a heavy downpour in Tibati and Menganga, and by morning, heavy rainfall is expected to persist in the town of Menganga. Next, we move over to the south region, where no chance of precipitation is expected tonight, and a similar experience by morning with temperatures as low as 19 degrees in Ebolova. Lastly, we take you on to the southwest, where we may have light showers in Mundemba and Bangem tonight, and a similar experience is expected to dominate the southwest region by morning. To protect yourself and others against the coronavirus, wash your hands regularly with soap and clean water, sneeze with a flexed elbow, and in case of symptoms, call 1510. See you next time.
109 ex-fighters of the Boko Haram terrorist group lay down their arms and commit to collaborate with the defense forces in tracing and snuffing out terrorists from their hideouts and zones of operation. Cameroon's Minister of Communication clears the air over the alleged payment of 8 billion CFA francs to his ministry for the ongoing fight against the COVID-19, saying only a disbursement of 100 million CFA francs was allocated to his ministry for the operation. Musicians in Cameroon cry foul against the peanut money being distributed to them by rights companies in the guise of musical royalties, describing them as insufficient, shrouded in mafia and injustice. Those are our lead stories. Hello and thanks for joining us on the 7:30 news on the CRTV. I am Ben Menopufong in Yaoundé.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
Hearty welcome once again. Some 109 ex-Boko Haram fighters have turned their back against the terrorist group and presented themselves to the new commander of the multinational joint task force in the Lake Chad Basin Commission, the Nigerian-born General Im Yusuf. The commander used the event to invite those who are still fighting for the Boko Haram to forsake the group and not listen to the lies currently being propagated that they will be killed by the defense forces if they denounce the sect. From Marwa, Henry Tato Ekambi reports.
The 109 ex-Boko Haram fighters that have 17 women in their group put down their arms after discovering that they were being manipulated to champion an evil cause. The new commander of the multinational joint task force, who was presented to the ex-fighters in Mora, congratulated them and Sector 1 of the force for these results.
The success in counterinsurgency operations is not judged by just the number of insurgents or terrorists that you are killing, but it is also measured by the number of those that are surrendering.
Major General Yusuf also made an appeal to those still collaborating with the Boko Haram sect to turn their backs on them and they will be forgiven.
The narrative in the Boko Haram enclave is that if you come out, soldiers will kill you because they don't want them to come out. But clearly they have come out, they have seen how they are received, how they are being treated.
These 109 ex-associates of Boko Haram have now added to the 155 in the transit center in Meri, making the number 264 that have now forsaken the sect in the far north region.
And as you must have corrected that name, the commander of the multinational joint task force up there is Major General Ibrahim Yusuf of Nigeria. And we stay in the far north, where the presidential couple of Cameroon has rushed to the assistance of the survivors of last weekend's terrorist attack in Getchewe in the far north region that left 19 dead and 16 wounded. Far North Governor who ran the mission for the presidential couple informed the populations of Getchewe that the head of state has given special instructions for a security belt to be reinforced in the entire area. Ayuk John Asho reports from Getchewe.
Traces of the August the 2nd fatal attack by runaway terrorists are still visible at the inland locality of Getchewe in Mayochanaga division at proximity with Nigeria. But the courageous men, women and children, though still mourning their loved ones, victims of the barbaric act, were relieved to welcome the governor of the Far North region, envoy of the head of state.
Your arrival here is a booster to us because these criminals have been disturbing us.
In a compassionate tone, Mijawa Bakare saluted the resilience of the people and delivered the message from President Paul Biya.
We are here on behalf of the presidential couple to extend their message of condolence and moral support.
An emergency relief package from the presidential couple composed of basic food items was handed to the population, whose spokesperson hailed the gesture from caring parents. Defense and security forces have stretched a safety curtain around Mayop Muskota to track down the terrorists.
In the meantime, all is not well with internally displaced persons in the northwest region, most of whom are imploring the government to resume the distribution of food aid and other basic supplies that got interrupted with the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. Most of them, who are currently going through dire straits, have been trooping into the Bamenda Center for the Coordination of Humanitarian Assistance to trigger the officials there to run to their rescue. Eric Langmia Wufo reports from Bamenda.
There are more than 300 who converge here on a daily basis to register for the imminent distribution of government's assistance. They have been fleeing violent confrontations from many parts of the northwest region.
They came and burned our house, and so there was no way to stay there again. As some of my parents are ill, I had to come with my children and meet them. We don't have things like bed or mattress to sleep on, and we don't have food.
We don't have space to sleep. We don't have, at times we don't have food to eat.
We should just be patient because from what the minister said, His Excellency, the Minister of Territorial Administration, he said we should continue registering these people, ensuring them that in the days ahead, assistance will come in.
The distributions were suspended in February 2020. Officials here say 3,000 internally displaced persons have so far registered since the humanitarian aid was suspended.
And I'll give you a reading of this reaction that is coming in from Cameroon's Ministry of Communication. And it goes, the Cameroon's Ministry of Communication has issued a disclaimer to newspaper reports alleging that his ministry received the sum of 8 billion CFA francs as allocations for the ongoing fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The disclaimer spells out in very clear terms that the 300 million CFA francs initially solicited, the head of government instructed the Ministry of Finance on March 27, 2020 to disburse the disbursement of 100 million CFA francs to the Ministry of Communication, representing just 1/3 of the initial amount. Communication to request it. From the foregoing, it is therefore clear that the Ministry of Communication has never received any further funds on the COVID account apart from the 100 million CFA francs authorized by the Prime Minister, head of government. The Ministry of Communication therefore considers these fictitious and truncated publications by some media organs in the country as blatant professional drift in media practice that deals a serious blow on the Cameroonian media, thereby seriously denting its credibility. And that was a resume of the reaction from the Ministry of Communication as signed by its Secretary General, Felix Zogo. And in spite of these vilifying publications from some media organs in the country that certainly have an axe to grind or scores to settle with the Ministry of Communication and its buzz, other media organs that still have respect for ethics and professional canons have come up with researched and verified write-ups on the issue, most of which vindicate the ministry and its buzz. Kilian Datndifon has been flipping through them for the 7:30 News.
Rene Emmanuel Sadi, 72-year-old career diplomat, soft-spoken, discreet and reserved politician, has come under undeserved press issues in the past few days. Fortunately, there are a good number of balanced reporters who have displayed their professionalism in their media outfits. Repair newspaper vindicates the Minister of Communication, government spokesperson from a supposed manhandling of the journalist, Sismondi Bijoka. The Repair describes the attempt to discredit the Mincom boss as a lost case. Another French-language newspaper, Le Quotidien, writes false allegations against Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi. The paper underlines that Sismondi believes Bijoka was not maltreated in the cabinet of Mincom. Reality calls the allegations by left Sismondi Bijoka's witchcraft fabricated to tarnish the image of Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi. A Sengang newspaper that debunks what some persons were already calling COVID gate and concludes that it is the figment of liars against the Minister of Communication, government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi.
Let's talk about other issues in the news now. There is a storm in the making within the ranks of the Cameroon Musical Arts Corporation over the yawning incongruities and gaping discrepancies in the distribution rate of musical royalties to musicians. One who could not stay back and see his rights being duped with, rather being doubled with, is Cameroon's veteran and iconic singer Ekambi Briand, who has issued an open letter calling on the Authors' Rights Company to sit up. In our newsroom dossier tonight, we explore the management of authors' rights issues and how rights companies proceed with the distribution of musical royalties in Cameroon today. Emanuela Vermeuil has our opening report.
For using musical works of artists on radio, television, or in bars, discotheques, and nightclubs, these structures owe to artists their salaries in the form of authors' rights. It is an economic and moral right of these creators of music which gives them legal ownership on the use and reproduction of their works. The Authors' Rights Management Body charged with collecting such money in Cameroon has often come under heavy criticism. Corruption and the non-mastery of roles has tarnished the activity, which normally has to repartition the money collected after every 3 months. Today, artists need some wave of luck to get paid once a year. 65% of the total sum perceived as authors' rights is reserved for the artist, while 35% goes for the day-to-day functioning of the Authors' Rights Management Body. But is this so? Not at all. Musicians have denounced shady deals. He or she whose songs play all around and enjoys a comfortable popularity should get a fair share of the authors' rights rights, but still musicians in Cameroon say this is not the case. Until the cleansing of the authors' rights management sector is done to instill order, artists in Cameroon will continue laboring without getting the returns of their works.
More and more artists in Cameroon are looking for alternative ways to earn a living besides relying on their musical careers. While some are putting their skills as producers to use to others, some of them have taken to teaching music or composing tunes to make ends meet. Romeo Kenye spoke to some artists and put together their reactions in the following report.
Smile on the face, he moves majestically to teach students music lessons. He has been doing this for the last 10 years, grooming over 19 artists. Kibungla Kiprano has been into music since 2004, when he released his famous track, Promised Land.
Let's stand for unity, give us a strength, God.
I decided to invest all my all only in music, and that's why I had to study anthropology. From there, I did the studies in music science and initiation to professional singing, which now lecture in several music schools here in Yaoundé, and that has really put bread on my table.
To him, artist-authors' right remains a heated debate.
For 10 years now, there are so many artists in Cameroon. They don't work. They only depend on the author's right, which is very difficult.
For his part, Angula embraced music since 1989. He is a musician of great repute. He believes artists should not solely depend on authors' right to earn a living, instead create alternative sources of income.
I'm a producer. You know that I am the first producer of Lady Pons. I'm a teacher. I try to transmit what I know in the production of music to the students.
Whether of the younger or older generation of artists, they all agree that every right-thinking artist should not make music the lone bread basket.
Now that authors' rights companies are tending to be more of foes than friends to the musicians, more and more artists are now resorting to social media platforms not only to make their works known, but to reap dividends that rights companies have blatantly been depriving them of over the past years. Given that most of these musicians are ICT neophytes, not mastering the rudiments of the ICTs, they, however, remain hopeful that it can provide them the necessary healing salve. Constantine Baum captured their thoughts and opinions in this report.
This artist is done with her audio recording, and she is now focused in getting her videos on the many social media platforms because of the broader networks provided by the platforms.
Your sphere of influence is greater and larger than before. I think it is preferable this time around than the CDs.
Many musicians say the platforms have completely changed music consumption habits that favor them.
For a long while now, let's say about 10 years, we've not been able to have a proper distribution network for CDs for our artists, and also wanting to attain a wider audience. We resolved to getting into social media platforms, which can be able to reach out to the world.
However, for now, many artists don't reap much financial benefits from the platforms.
We are still getting recognized. We're still to get a lot of recognition by, the financial part of the internet.
The major streaming platforms have done a great work of giving their users the music they want in the form of personalized, curated and branded playlists, all to the advantage of musicians.
We now move over to the Story Arts and Culture buzz. Pierre Ismail Bidungpat has received in two separate groups of musicians and the information professionals in two separate audiences in line with the Mercredi des Artistes initiative that is currently going on in that ministry. Discussions centered on the collective management of authors and related rights, the new law on cultural associations, and also ways of reviving the sector that is reeling from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're now months after the situation was decried. We're talking there about the issue of scarcity of coins that is being decried in the Semak region, particularly in Cameroon, a situation that monetary experts have been blaming on the lack of a monetary regulation policy, the illicit traffic of coins by some foreign heavyweight businesses, as well as those of them that are operating game rooms, and many more issues that necessitate the cash to be able to run. Our reporter Caroline Okie-Anoma went prying into the situation of the scarcity of coins on the market in Cameroon and put together the following reports rather.
The unusual burning phenomenon of scarcity of coins in the Cameroonian community is fast becoming a new normal. Experts say the scarcity of coins in the sub-region and Cameroon in particular can be attributed to the illicit traffic of coins, lack of monetary regulating policies, financial education, etc. Experts claim it has devastating consequences on the socio-economic arena.
When people conceal coins for other purposes other than what it is meant for, it distorts economic activities.
Aten Mignu is a normal Cameroonian doing grocery for his family. At the counter, the cashier rings his grocery. His bill is 5,350,000 CFA francs. No problem. He gives out the 10,000 CFA francs bill. But the cashier does not have his complete balance of 4,650,000 CFA francs. What happens? He is forced to either do additional shopping to round up the figures against his wish or drop the purchase. Scenario like this is a new normal in our society. So, can injecting smaller bills be a solution?
Fabrication of smaller bills like 100 francs and 200 francs will instead create more problems than solutions.
Article 223 and 214 of the Cameroonian Penal Code punishes perpetrators by 1,000 CFA francs to 200,000 CFA francs and a 10 to 30 days imprisonment. To remedy this situation, experts recommend an effective monetary policy be put in place to regulate the financial system. This, they insist, will solve most of the micro and macroeconomic fallout of the coin shortage.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
And you're on to the 7:30 news on the Cameroon Radio Television, the CRTV. We are beaming live from Yaoundé. 240,000 students have begun writing the 2020 session of the Probatoire General examinations nationwide. In the Central region, some 62,064 candidates are concerned for that operation. Our reporter Alice May visited the government bilingual high school in Coleton to find out how the exercise has been unfolding and reports that no incidents were recorded.
There are 916 candidates sitting in for the probatoire examination at the government bilingual high school in Coleton. 472 boys, 444 girls, 8 deaf and dumb, and 16 visually impaired candidates.
This year there are 2 rooms, one for the deaf and dumb, and other for the visually challenged. So for those who are special disability, they add some 15 minutes in order to make them be in the same level with other.
At exactly 6:30 a.m., the school authorities were at the entrance of the school, amongst others, taking the temperature of the candidates. This to ensure that all government barrier measures were strictly respected.
Exams are going on well. We have special candidates. When they write their exam, we act on the regular time.
The exam that began this morning with chemistry and history will run for 5 days.
Over in the southwest region, some 91 candidates are taking the probatoire examination in the Boya Center. As we hear in the following report by Annabelle Ndike Enoanyang, the exercise unfolded in the atmosphere of calm and conviviality.
Although the unusual break imposed by the coronavirus slowed down learning activities, the probatoire candidates came in with determination and confidence to make it through the examination.
94 candidates registered, and out of the 94, 3 were absent. That gives us a percentage presence of 97%.
In the meantime, all barrier measures were being respected to curb the spread of the coronavirus.
As you enter the school compound, you notice that right at the entrance we had buckets display, and we saw people taking temperatures, and then there's soap, there's hand sanitizer.
A similar atmosphere is witnessed in other accommodation centers across the region.
Gynecologists in Cameroon have recommended regular vaccination for pregnant women and babies to keep them safe from the disease that may expose them to contracting the COVID-19 disease. This and other issues are being raised at the government as the government is urging its citizens to hold tight to the preventive measures and keep safe from the monster of a virus. Baldwin Sama is at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center with his guest, Dr. Philemon and Semare, with whom they now update us on the latest COVID-19 figures in Cameroon today. Hello, Baldwin. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Public Health Emergency Operations Center. Most of these pregnant women in Cameroon, alongside newborn babies, are quite worried whether they should continue with their regular vaccines that pregnant women do take during the pregnancy period, or vaccines reserved for newborn babies. How important are vaccines for pregnant women and newborn babies during this COVID-19 period, and how regular should they have these vaccines? That is what we are discussing tonight with Dr. Philemon Semare. He is a guest and a gynecologist. Good evening to you, Doctor.
Good evening, Simon.
Tell us, Doctor, how important are vaccines for pregnant women and newborn babies during this COVID-19 period?
In Cameroon, there is a well-developed program, vaccination program, the expanded program on immunization. And this program has about 13 vaccines that go a long way to protect children of vaccination age against 13 preventable diseases. And
go ahead.
These women could be prevented by, we are advising all pregnant women and mothers to continue collecting their children to the vaccination centers for routine vaccination. These vaccines will go a long way to prevent diseases like measles and meningitis that can be prevented by these vaccines.
And how regular should they have these vaccines?
They should do it as regularly, following the normal program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Philemon Semare, reminding our viewers that you are a gynecologist. Pregnant women, alongside those who have babies already, should know that they should continue following the prescribed calendar for vaccines reserved for pregnant women and newborn babies, especially during this COVID-19 period. Back to you, Ben Menopofo.
Thank you very much, Baldwin Sama. The Korean Embassy in Cameroon has donated information and communication equipment worth 104 million CFA francs to the Cameroon Institute of Child in Betamba. The gift, meant to provide quality education to the over 70 vulnerable children at the institution, were handed over to the Minister of Social Affairs, Pauline Irengene, in a ceremony in Yaoundé today. Rainatu Sali reports.
From the streets to their new home to give them a better future, these vulnerable children of the Cameroon Institute in Betamba have picked up different professions. One of such is information and communication technologies. To help them perfect their training, the Korean Embassy in Cameroon has offered these ICT equipment worth 104 million CFA francs.
Korea would like to endeavor to continue to share our experience with Cameroon.
The gifts comprised of computers, hard drives, printers, photocopy machines and video projectors. Receiving the package in Yaoundé, Minister Pauline Irengene of Social Affairs said the gesture is within the framework of a project to modernize the institute, which hosts over 70 vulnerable children.
Let's talk sports now, as members of the board of directors of the National Olympic and Sports Committee have called for the resumption of sporting activities in the different sporting federations in the country, while the respect of the COVID-19 preventive measures are being strictly respected. The call was made today during an ordinary board meeting of the National Olympic and Sports Committee, presided over by the President Hamad Kalkaba Malboum. Boldin Sama tells us more.
Board members have called on the Olympic Committee to ensure smooth preparation for Team Cameroon ahead of the 2021 Olympic Games in Japan, taking into consideration the different international Olympic values. They took into consideration directives from the International Olympic Committee for elections in the different sports movements to be organized before December 2021. Board members have postponed this year's National Games of Cameroon to take place in Bamenda to 2022 in the same town of Bamenda. They expressed a wish for the immediate resumption of sports activities with respect to anti-COVID barrier measures outlined by the governments of Cameroon and the World Health Organization, while soliciting from the Ministry of Public Health some anti-COVID kits for the different sports movements.
That's all from me. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing